Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, and Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Hi, my name is Jennifer RABAGO-ROMAN, and I'm telling you a little bit about my book, Remembering My Real Life. My Remembering My Real Life is a beautiful poetry book that has very beautiful poetry about it inside. It tells you a little bit about my life in poetry. It has spiritual poetry, it has love poetry, it has sadness poetry, it has landscape poetry. It will take you on a beautiful journey from my childhood to my adulthood. It's a journey that you will love. But you know what? You have to buy the book. You can buy the book at Amazon.com. But you can buy it for everybody in your family, and they will enjoy it as a great present this holiday. Just go ahead and do that. Please do. I'm sure they will love it, and it will be a piece in history that they will love. You know why? Because I'm going to tell you the evolution of poetry and how it started. But I am a poet of the 21st century, and I'm proud to be a poet of the 21st century because I love poetry. Thank you so much. But you need to get this copy because it is a 1 in a million, that's for sure. So, the evolution of poetry. Do you have a favorite time period? I sure do. I'll tell you what it is when we get there. So, a good place to start was when looking back at how poetry was evolved over time, and over time with epic poetry. Most of the earliest known poetry was a form of epic poetry, some of which dates back centuries of before humans began writing down their stories. One of the earliest poetic works was the Epic of Gilgamesh, dates back around 2000, writing down their stories. 2000 BC. It was when it was part of the oral tradition of the Sumerians. Never heard of him. I know you haven't. I know I haven't. But it's the evolution of poetry. Researchers think that this suggests that poetry and the poetic styling was originally developed to help storytellers who often acted as historians memorize their stories more easily. As a written text, the epic poem about King Gilgamesh dates back to around 1000 BC. Besides the epic, the Rig Vedas of Hinduism, and the Song of the Weaver from Egypt are among the first poems ever. Poem comes from the Greek poema, meaning thing made. And a poet is defined in ancient terms as, and I quote, a maker of things. So if a poem is a thing made, what kind of thing is it? The ancient Greeks and Romans between about 1200 BC and AD 455 were also known for their great epic poetry. Two of the most famous Greek poets were Homer, who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, and Hesiod, who wrote works of days. The ancient Greeks used poetry in music and in theater and loved to write about their gods and heroic deeds of their great people. I'm sure many know this. Is this your favorite time frame? Think about it for a moment. Do you like this time frame? Not really my favorite time. Okay, so by medieval times, about 455 to 1485, poets, give me a second, gotta readjust, to 1485, ouch, sorry, to 1485, poets began to play with both, the subject matter and language of their poems. Some medieval poets, like Geoffrey Chaucer, even experimented with writing in their language of the common people, known as vernacular. Before that, most scholarly and artistic works were written in Latin. I'm sure some of you might know that. During the Renaissance period, which is 1485 between 1660, poets got even more creative. They developed new structures and forms of meter. Playwrights like William Shakespeare and Thomas Marlowe incorporated poetry in their plays. It's what known as verse drama. Structures and styles, as well as adding layers of meaning to poems, became very popular. I'm sure many of you love this time. That's how we came to love Shakespeare, It was like, wherefore art thou, my Juliet? Wherefore art thou, my Romeo? Do many of you love those times? Do you like William Shakespeare? I'm sure you've heard of him. I like William Shakespeare. I love the plays. Do you like plays? Have you been to a play? Think about it. Some people like this time. I like plays. Tell me if you like a play. Ask me a question or two if you like this time frame. I'd like to know. So, AJ says he loves Romeo and Juliet. Thank you, AJ. That was fantastic. I love Romeo and Juliet too. If anybody else has seen any plays like Romeo and Juliet or any other of William Shakespeare's plays, that would be fantastic. Or even any of Mozart's plays, that would be fantastic. Anybody's plays, that would be awesome to know. Please share and let me know. This is a time for sharing, So, during the Enlightenment period, which is 1660 to 1790, there was a big interest in returning to the styles of the classical Greeks. Oh boy. There was a lot of emphasis on formal styles and discipline in writing during this time. During the Romantic period, which is 1790 through 1830, on the other hand, there was, wait a minute, there was a big departure from the methods of poets during the Enlightenment. The Romantics were all about finding new ways to express themselves. Romantic writers, they focused on individuality and nature. That's what I write a lot about, and they valued creativity and over logic. Poets like Alexander Pope and Jonathan Swift explored new forms and themes during this time. In the United States, new poetic styles emerged out of the Transcendentalist movement. The Transcendentalist movement began with New England intellectuals gathered to discuss what Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, and I quote, nature, end quote. Many literary giants, including social leaders and intellectuals, called themselves transcendentalists, such as Waldo Emerson, who I know about, Bronson Alcott, Louise May Alcott, Henry David Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, Orestes Bronson, William Ellery, Ellery Channing, Sophia Peabody, and her husband, and one of the best, Nathaniel Hawthorne. Transcendentalists wanted to break away from the establishment institutions of society. Like the Romantic writers in England, they focused on creativity, nature, and individuality. The third of England's big three movements completed a 30-century period during which Britain Isles took the Western poetic mantle from Italy and modeled the forms, styles, and poems that fill school classrooms to this day. The Romantic period, or Romanticism, is regarded as one of the greatest and most illustrious movements in literary history, which is all the more amazing considering that it primarily consisted of just 7 poets and lasted approximately 25 years. Yes, 25 years. From William Blake's rise in the late 1790s to Lord Byron's death in 1824. In between the group, where was I? I apologize. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, there. In between, the group of poets lived as mighty flame of poet production that were extinguished well before their time. The core group included Blake, William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor, Coleridge, and the magnificent trio of Lord Byron, Percy Bysshe Shelley, and John Keats. Those are all literally the most famous poets that I have ever studied. I don't know if you've ever studied poetry, but those are one of the top, those are literally the best poets that I have ever studied. And if you've ever studied poetry, they are the best. And I love reading their poetry. But mine is just as beautiful. And if they read my poetry, they would love it. And my book again is Remembering My Real Life. So you definitely want to pick it up. Okay. Oops. So, now, and by the way, my favorite time is the romantic. Tell me again. Oh, Fairgoer 748 wants to know, what is the most difficult part of my artistic process? Well, Fairgoer 748, what's the most difficult part of my artistic process? Well, the most difficult part of my artistic process would be to determine what I'm going to write about next, because there's so many different topics I could write about. It's difficult to choose what I want to write about next. So that's the difficult part. Thanks for that question. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask me. Okay, so during the Victorian period, which is between 1832 and 1901, writers continued to break away from the established forms and structures that had been developing during the previous literary periods. Poets like Walt Whitman began writing in free verse or completely without meter. Since the beginning of the 20th century, there have been many changes to the way poetry is written and read. From 1948 to 1963, it is called the Beat, like B-E-A-T movement. And it only lasted 15 years. And it was known by the masses only in the last 6. But the combination of disenfranchisement wanderlust, and creative expression that inflicted a handful of New York and San Francisco students and young intellectuals resulted in the most influential movement of the past 100 years of poetry. The beats formed from a variety of characters and interests. I don't have a mark. Where was I? Where was I? Lost my spot again. Crap. I did it again. Give me a sec. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Right, the beats formed from a wide variety of characters and interests, but were linked by a common thread, a desire to live life as they defined it. The mixture of academia, bebop jazz, the liberating free beat generation. In 1948, a meeting with Allen Ginsberg, Herbert Hunk, and William S. Burroughs. A young, inspired young Ginsberg had to change everything that he had learned about poetry. And he wrote throughout the early 1950s into a narrative free verse. And he joined by the young Gregory Corso and Peter Orlovsky, and the older Burroughs, who, like Kerouac, opted for fiction. Through Kerouac wrote beautiful poetry that has been read and appreciated over the past 2 decades. So, as you see, poetry has evolved tremendously for thousands of years. So can anybody tell me what their favorite period is that they like or that they love? Can anybody pick one for me that they like at all? My favorite period is the Romanticism period. I've told you mine. Can anybody tell me their favorite? Make a comment and tell me your favorite period. Let me go through them one more time. I'll go through them. The first period is the medieval poem. I'm sorry, is the medieval time. The next period is the Enlightenment period. The next period is the, give me a second, is the Romantic period. And the next period is the free verse period. And then the next period after that, and AJ likes William Shakespeare's period, which is that's the medieval time period, AJ, just to let you know. I like that time too, but I'm more of a romantic. I agree with you, AJ. Thank you for commenting, AJ. I appreciate it. Let's see. And then we have the beat movement, where it's a combination of creative expression and excuse me. 1 second. In the Victorian period, where it went from to free verse. So those are the different times. So can anybody else tell me their favorite period? If anybody else is watching, I would appreciate it. That would be great. Nobody else? No? Okay. I'm surprised. Okay, then. So, with that in mind, I will tell you that with mine being romantic and his being, medieval, and well, actually yours is the Renaissance. That's the Renaissance period. I can tell you that my book would be considered, mine would be considered, I guess it's past. Mine would be considered, because it's in the 21st century. Oh, Fairgoer 1014 says, I like the period that Christina Rossetti was in. I studied her poetry in 2nd grade. That's very sweet. I like that. Thank you for your comment, Christina. Let's see. My poetry would be a combination, because I am a poet of the 21st century, but I have a combination of poetry inside of my book. I use a combination of poetry in my book. I use some free verse like Walt Whitman does, but yet I use some, let me see, I use also a lot of creative expression as well. Let me see, I also use some, I'm looking. I use some verse drama like William Shakespeare does. Oh no, not like Wherefore art thou. I don't talk like thou. I don't talk like that in here. I'm not like a drama queen. Yeah, she can laugh. So no, I'm not like him. Let me think. You could say, yes, I'm very creative in my poets. Yes. Because let's see, I can read one of my poems for you. No. I can read for you, Remember. How about this? This would be like, this would be something like this poem would be considered like one of these poets would write. It's entitled Remember. Okay? As I sit here all alone, I change my own tone. Thoughts of you come into my mind and my body starts to unwind. I count no more tears and I do not think about any lost years. How you always kissed my lips and now I want to gag. The way you grabbed my hips and now I want to sit still. Hearing the sweetest words that you had told me, I always gilled me with such a glee, but now they mean nothing. The way you always played with my hair was something I could always bear. But now I am with someone who really loves me. There are other men who are only above you because of what you did to me. You are a piece of a crap man. But what I hate the most of all is that you made me love you because you made me remember you no more. This I wrote to my ex, who I was with for 5 years. There is no dedication, but this was written for my ex, who I was with for 5 years, here in Kissimmee. I can give you that little bit of a hint because you are going to buy the book so you can know the story and know the pain that's in my heart. Every time I look at it, every time I read it, the pain's there. Because, yeah, he is a piece of a crap man because of how he treated me. Because you know what? There are pieces of crap men like that. Lovely, somebody says. That message suits my ex as well. I'm sorry that it does, sweetheart. Because you know what? I want you to be able to buy this book and read it. Because you know why? You will completely resonate with the feelings of this book. You will read it and you will completely resonate with all of the feelings in this book. You will laugh, you will cry, you will smile, you will cry, you will go up, you will go down, you will just have all the feelings completely. You know, there is so many different kinds of there's so many different kinds of of poems in here. They are from, like I say, this book takes place in many different places. It takes place in a person's heart. It takes place from a person's touch. It takes place from watching a snowdrop. It takes place in a person's arms. It takes place with friends. It takes place outside. It takes place on a special night. It takes place in the night. It takes place near water. It takes place in the moonlight. It takes place, as you can see, anywhere in many different places. But I can't give you away every single place. Because you know why? You have to buy the book. I want you to read and enjoy it, because it would be also a great gift for anybody to enjoy this holiday season. Give it to everybody. Oh, here, Dennis has a question. if you had to do something differently as a child or a teenager to become a better writer as an adult, what would you do? Well, Dennis, I think I would have concentrated more as a writer on my writing skills and really focused more on poetry so that I could have gotten maybe a little bit better. But I think I'm a good poet, you know. I'm not trying to toot my blow my own horn, but I think I would have focused a little bit more on my writing skills, you know, and taken some poetry classes if I could. That's what I would have done. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, great. Fairgoer 1014. Oh, but yes, it does. Fairgoer 1014 says it must have been hard to process memories of past hurt. And yes, it is true. It is very hard. But, you know, I have to do what I have to do. And I have no shame in sharing, you know, because it's just a memory. So I have to do what I have to do. And it's just a memory, and I write it down, and I learn from it. And I learn from it, and I become a better person. So that's what I do. And I've learned, and I become a better person. So thank you for that. Does anybody else have a question? What period of your life do you find you write about most often? Let me see. I think I wrote more often in I think I wrote more often as, I don't want to say more often. I think it was probably equally between teenage and adult, I want to say. But childhood has a good chunk. Yeah, yes, that's what I would say. Childhood has a good chunk, but then the biggest chunks are teenage and adult. So that's how the book would contain. Yes, because the book has only 100. The book has only 108 pages, and it's 100 poems. So it would be about a quarter child, and then a chunk of teenage, and then the rest adulthood. Great question. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Excuse me. Dennis says, what is the first book that made me cry? Well, Dennis, the first book that made me cry was, what is that called again? The Bridges of Madison County. That was the first book to make me cry. Remember that book? Yeah, that was the first one to make me cry. Such a beautiful book. Very touching. I was so happy when they made it into a movie. She played the part so perfectly. What's her name? I can picture her right now with Clint Eastwood. The blonde. What was her name? And she played the part so perfectly. The blonde actress. Dennis also asks, did that book inspire me into writing a book as well? Yes, Dennis, it did want to inspire me. That book, that did at that time, actually, Dennis, I was actually writing my poetry because this is actually my poetry book. See, this actually has my poetry inside it. So at the time, I was already writing. So my poetry book was already being written in at that time. See, and you can see here, like certain poems will tell you, see right there, how it shows you, see? C means it's copyrighted and that it's published. Like before this came out and got copyrighted and published, this one was already copyrighted and published in the year 2000. So I don't know how old, 72. I was 18 at that year. At that year, I was already copyrighted and published for that year for the poem Hold On. And I can't read you that one yet because that's not the topic for today. Meryl Streep. Yes. Thank you, AJ. Meryl Streep was the actress on The Bridges of Madison County. She played the role fantastic. Her and him played the role perfectly. That was my favorite. Yes, that was the first book to make me cry. Well, movie. It was a book first, but the book that was the first book to make me cry. And when they made it into the movie, I told my mom, because we saw the movie together. She had the book, and I told my Mom, please let me read the book. And she said, Jenny, be prepared. You're going to cry. And I said, I don't care. I want to read the book. And she said, okay. And oh, okay, that's awesome. You know what movie I want to watch actually this weekend? Especially after talking about the evolution, especially after talking about the evolution of poetry this evening, I actually want to watch Ever After this weekend with Drew Barrymore, because that movie, to me, it's so beautiful because it's a very romantic time. you know, and it just, during that time, it's a very romantic time, and it's just very, it's like, that's how the way men should be treating women, and it's just a very beautiful time. And it, the way they talk, it's very beautiful, and the way they speak, it's very la 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 la. It's and it's just very, it's very touching. And the way the prince goes to lengths to try to find her, it's so touching that it breaks my heart. And it's just, and I'm like, that's what I want. And I know I'm going to get that. I'm going to find that. I'm going to find a man like that. I will definitely find a man like that. I'm going to find me a prince like that, that wants me and adores me like that. I know I will. For sure. That goes to that lengths. And I'm going to have that bead over me like that, and that dress like a courtier. and that she's sitting there with her book that her papa gave her, you know, and I'll be having my poetry book that my papa gave me, you know, and I'll be reading it. Papa, thank you so much. And then the wicked stepsister throws it in the fire. But why did you do that? You know, but I don't know if my sister would ever do that. Maybe, you know, she's done some horrible things to me in the past. Who knows? You know, but I'm not here to bash my sister. I'm here to, you know, tell you to buy my book, because it's a beautiful book to buy for all your friends. Tell your friends about it to buy it for family members, you know, for this beautiful holiday season we're about to embark on. You know, it will be so wonderful for them to read, because it talks about love and sadness, and it talks about nature. It talks about everything. It talks about friends. It talks about watching snow. It talks about everything in it. I can't tell, like I say, I can't tell you every single poem, but if I could read it and I could buy it and give it away, I have. Trust me, though, I have given a lot away. I got 10 free books and I gave them all away as gifts. Trust me, I did. And my friends, they loved it. I autographed them and I gave them away as presents. They loved them. So think about it. If you could give them away as presents, wouldn't you? Yes, for sure. You know, so let me think. We're talking about, you know, romantic ones. So I guess maybe should we do another romantic one? Maybe. Well, you know, I'm saving the loved ones for Love Day. You know. And I'm going to be doing all next week. So does anybody have any other questions? I'd rather do some more questions because we're almost done. Okay, Lovely says, do you think someone could be a writer if they don't feel emotions strongly? Of course, yes. Yes, they could. Because even if you don't feel emotions strongly, you can still write about other things, because poems can be anything. Poems can be about other things. Like I say, poems can be about excuse me, you know, poems can be about landscapes. Poems can be about, you know, like I say, poems can be about a person's touch. Poems can be about moonlights. Poem can be about, you know, a person's heart. A person can be about going outside. A person can be about, you know, being with friends. You can talk about, you know, what you like. You know, do you like waterfalls like I do? Or do you like the lake? Do you like, it can be about whatever you like. That's the point of the poem. As long as the poem is telling a story, that's all that matters. Okay, Lovely has another question. It says, I want to write about poetry as well. However, I'm not sure how to start. Do you have any advice? Of course. So the way to start would be to think, okay? Just like I'm telling you. Think about what you like, okay, Lovely? So what do you like, okay? I don't know what you like and what your dislikes are, but let's say you like dogs. If you like dogs, write a couple poems about dogs. You know, if you like cats, you can write a poem about cats. You know, if you like birds, you can write about birds. You know, it can be about anything. If you can even write about babies. You know, if you like flowers, you can write about flowers. You know, it can be about anything you want. Like I say, as long as the poem tells a story, that's all that matters. Is if you like kids, you can write about kids. If you like hair, you can write about hair. You know, and it doesn't have to be long. Geez, I'm sorry about that. It doesn't have to be long. It can be short. It doesn't always have to be long. Okay? It can be about anything you want, just as long as it's about something that you love to write about. That's all that matters. Anything that you love or like to write about. Tell me about what you like to write about. What you like. You have to like something. You must like to write about fashion, maybe makeup. All girls like fashion or makeup, you know, or getting dressed or shoes or shopping. Oh my gosh, girlfriend, let me tell you, you know, you have to think of something. You gotta love something. Think about it. You know, make a list of all the things that you love to do and start from there. I hope I answered your question there somewhere, and start from there. And with all of those topics, that's got to be somewhere to start. And then give yourself a title. And then just there, do some free verse. Just write down, you know, I love to do this. Doing this makes me happy. I can be so creative when I do this, you know. Just do free verse, you know. That's what free verse is all about. You don't have to rhyme it, just free verse it. That's all you got to do. Okay? So, I'd like to thank you all again for joining me, for coming to see Remembering My Real Life today, and watching the evolution of poetry. So be sure to try to pick up your copy. You're welcome, lovely. I hope it helped. Please try to pick up your copy today of Remembering My Real Life at Amazon.com. I'll be back again tomorrow with a different topic about poetry. It was a pleasure to be with you today, and have a wonderful evening. And I'll see you here tomorrow. And have a wonderful evening. Just be sure to pick up that copy at Amazon.com. Okay? Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a